Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're so glad that you could join us today for our session to get to know Hispanic life in America, brought to you by NewsBank. We are at the top of the hour, so let's get started. Just wanted to let you know that this session is recorded and we will send a copy to everyone following the webinar. My name is Catherine Bergerson. I am the Vice President of Marketing here at NewsBank, and today I'll be joined by my colleague, Jim Draper. In the next 45 minutes, it's our goal to share with you an overview of this rich collection and what really makes Hispanic life in America unique. We'll show you how to pinpoint areas of interest so you can find the most relevant information to your area of interest. We're going to share some ideas of how to build visibility and engagement with this resource, including various ready-to-use posts that you can start using right away. If you have any questions, you'll see there is a little chat icon to the left side of your screen, I believe. If you click on that, type your question in there. We commit to getting back to you as soon as possible. So if that sounds good to everyone, let's dive right in. I thought I'd start with just a brief background about NewsBank. We are a leading news and information provider to public libraries, research institutions, schools, and more. And I'm proud to share with you that our company recently celebrated its 50th anniversary. We aggregate news sources from all around the world, bringing you and your patrons, faculty, students, whoever's using your resources, credible, vetted, global news, many of which are unique to NewsBank and all of which are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So again, today we are going to be focusing on our product Hispanic Life in America, and to show us around this rich product is the president of our Redex division, Jim Draper. Welcome, Jim.
Hello, everybody. And thank you, Catherine, for the very warm introduction, which I appreciate very much. I am Jim Draper, president of Redex NewsBank. In early 2022, I had the pleasure of working with a great team of editors and content specialists to build Hispanic Life in America. We had seen great success with Black Life in America, released just a year before, and customers and users had encouraged us to create a similar collection covering the story of Hispanic Americans. I am now proud to say that Hispanic Life in America is today one of Redex NewsBank's most successful products of all time in just a year, with more than 1,000 institutions and many thousands of students and researchers using the collection every day. I'm happy to give you a live tour today of the database to help you see the power of the content it contains. I'm going to focus on the stories the product tells, the achievements of Hispanic Americans and their struggles from the earliest times until today and even through tomorrow. I will spend relatively little time focusing on the functionality of the database. Users tell us it is generally very intuitive and the product is loaded with inline help to assist users as needed. Now let me share my screen so I can show you Hispanic Life in America. My plan today is to help students and library patrons and researchers get the most value they can from this product, Hispanic Life in America, by previewing in particular the richness of the content and showing some critical access points. What you see now is the homepage of Hispanic Life in America. You can see it contains all the resources and hints and tips for use that you would expect in a homepage. I'll give you a little bit of a hint about some of these in a moment, but first I want to show you the entire homepage. As I scroll down, you can see a panel of suggested searches. This will be my focus today to help you understand how these suggested searches are portals, are pathways into a very rich content set. But first, as we look at the homepage, let me point out 2 or 3 things that may be helpful to you and to your patrons and to your users. First, we do have a help document attached to this page. You can see it right here. I'm going to open it up. It is very, very comprehensive. As you can see, it allows a user to understand how to search and use the database very effectively. We also have a document called Learn More about this database. Here you can see it opened right now. This document helps users understand how this product, how this database covers the entire spectrum of the story of Hispanics in America. It also gives search tips and helps students in particular understand the kind of content that is contained within the collection. I'm going to slowly scroll, as you can see, to give you a sense of the richness and depth of the stories and the content itself. And here you see an example of how to begin your research using Hispanic Life in America, whether you're a casual researcher or a student or a very advanced researcher beyond PhD or even faculty level. These examples are meant to help acclimate the user to the experience he or she will have within the collection. Here are some examples below of how to use the suggested searches panel as well, as I mentioned just a moment ago. This document is also available, as you can see now, in Spanish. This collection contains over 10 million items of content in the Spanish language. The interface is easy to use for non-English language speakers. It's very intuitive, as I mentioned a moment ago. But for those non-English language speakers who know only Spanish or want to read Spanish content, this document will help them become acclimated to the product and to the database in the same way as the English language document. Now, I want to scroll through for a moment because the examples here, as you can see, are limited entirely to Spanish language content, and the entire document is available to Spanish language speakers for their benefit and to help them understand the value and power of this collection. So now I'm going to return to the homepage and tell you a little bit more about the product before we begin to explore it in more depth. Hispanic Life in America contains 18,000 individual news sources going back to the very beginning of the 18th century, with more than 50 million individual content items. I mentioned a moment ago that 10 million plus of those are Spanish, 50 million individual content items in total. Coverage comes from all over the United States, all over America before it was the United States, and from all over the world, including dozens of current Hispanic American newspapers and news sources, and hundreds of historical Hispanic American newspapers, and also, very importantly for overseas and home country perspectives, Latin American newspapers. I mentioned a moment ago the suggested searches panel, which is of such great value for users of Hispanic Life in America. Some browsers do not always resolve the way mine is right now in this live shot, so we have created a jump to suggested searches right here at the top of the page. Let me do that again. In case on your library browser or your community's user browsers, this does not resolve the exact same way. This jump right here, you can see, taken immediately to this portal we call suggested searches. First, I want to explain what these are. This collection of 50 million plus content items is very, very large and extremely comprehensive. There is nothing else like it available to users anywhere, and that's thanks to the very rich news assets of Redex and NewsBank. Because it is so big, it is sometimes daunting for a user or even an advanced researcher to understand how to begin his or her research. Well, of course, a user can start here with the search box, and I'm going to do that in just a moment, or a user can begin with the suggested searches. Before I do the first, that is the open search, I want you to understand, please, that the suggested searches are a path, and I'm going to show these in just a moment to help you understand how this timeline approach covering major events, people, achievements, interests, and concerns of Hispanic Americans is a very important path into the product. First, though, I'm going to go right back to the top. I'm going to do with a hat an open search, meaning I'm going to insert nothing in the search box here. I'm going to search. Now the product is coming to life, as you can see with the spinning wheel up here. What I'm doing now is opening up every content item in the database. And you'll see in just a moment that it is more than 50 million of those. There you are, 52,180,290 results as of today. Later today, that number will go up because every day we add new content to this collection. This product and Black Life in America, its companion, are the only two products of their kind where primary sources are added to a digital collection every day to make sure it is entirely up to date. So right now I'm sorting to newest, that's the default. I'm going to back up a bit and go to oldest, just to give you a sense of the richness and breadth and definitive nature of this content set. Here we are. We're in Boston, 1704. Boston, June 10th. Boston Newsletter, August 1704. New York, 1704 in October. These are the earliest records of Hispanics in America, the earliest records recorded in the news. I'll take this opportunity as well to give you a sense of the power of these navigators on the left-hand bar where you see here. You see all the different content types. As I scroll down, you'll see you can look at multiple locations. You can look at sources from all over the place. We have many, many languages. I mentioned Spanish a moment ago. We're now up to 11 million Spanish items because we are tracking Spanish language content every day and adding it to the collection. Let me, though, illustrate the power of the content with an opening of this source name. This is a modal that pops up when users want to go to a particular source or want to see if their local paper is in the collection or if another current paper from nearby is, so they can get local perspectives. Here you see 18,000 different source names, some very, very deep, some very, very old, others very, very new, most of them in English. Some of them, however, as you can see here, are in Spanish. Now, I'm going to resort this in the other direction to give you a really interesting view of how many sources we have here and where they are from. So we have Cuba, and this is just a standard sort I'm doing here. We have Cuba, South Africa, Mexico, USA, USA, USA. As I continue down, you see the pattern continue. USA, Zambia, USA, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the bulk of sources and materials are from the United States. They tend to be very local as well as national. This I'm sharing with you right now to give you a real sense of how deep this content set is. I'll also show you that in some cases we have an astonishingly large collection of articles, and in other cases, for example here from Ridgewood, New Jersey, just one. But it is of value in the study of Hispanic Americans. Therefore, we include it in this product. Here are some others. You see much richer content coming from these types of papers and news sources. I wanted to share that with you at this point to give you a sense of how sweeping this content set is and how, for some researchers, it can be daunting. For others, they know how to maneuver and manipulate a search set or advanced search or Boolean operators. They get all that and they can jump right in. But for others, it may not be so simple. So that's why I'm going back to the so-called suggested searches to give you a sense of how they create an extra level of power and an extra level of access for users and researchers of every type. So if you will, observe here this panel where we have, in essence, a timeline of the story of Hispanic Americans, beginning at the very, very earliest time with the earliest news assets that cover this story, all the way through to today. And you can see we have divided this story into eras that reflect the standard understanding of important time periods or eras in the study of Hispanic American history. Most of these will be familiar to you if you've studied this area of history, but if you have not, they will orient you and get your eye and ear moving toward a deeper understanding of Hispanic American history, even from just observing this panel. So to give you an example of how this works, Spanish arrival to Texas annexation, this is the earliest content. You can see here, same heading, this matches this, but these are the topics, the areas of interest, where a researcher can immediately enter the content set using pre-selected suggested searches. This is true for all of these particular eras. Now, the earliest eras tend to have fewer searches because the story was early and new and just beginning. The later time periods have an extraordinary number of suggested searches and topics and themes, hundreds and hundreds of them that look like this, but for a more current time period. So what I'd like to do is give you an example. Here we're looking at Spanish arrival to Texas annexation, meaning all the way up to 1845. I am going to go to international affairs, as you can see, and I'm going to open just one search in the interest of time on annexation of Texas. And what we're going to see is the news coverage of this matter as it happened, as you can see right now. What you're looking at is a search that is composed this way. We show this to the user so he or she can alter or change this search as he or she may wish to do to narrow it or expand it, can add rows and make it far more complex, or leave it as it is, or change the date to cover a larger time period. Well, what do we see here now? We default to best match, and here you see the earliest coverage from 1844 to 1846 of this critical event in the history of Hispanic Americans, the annexation of Texas. And I'm going to scroll through for just a moment so you can see the extraordinary variety of sources we have here. All of these are different papers, all, for the most part, local papers covering this matter, although national papers covered it as well. You can see as I scroll that, for example, Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Here we have the Republican Farmer from Bridgeport, Connecticut, and of course, many sources from the Southwest and elsewhere, which you're not seeing on the screen now. I'm going to open one of these so you can see how the image viewer works. Here we go to Annexation of Texas Sketch. And here we are from the Albany Evening Journal. This is the original document. You cannot get closer to history than this. It is as it happened, as you can see here, from the Albany Evening Journal in February 1845. I won't point out all the tools we have here for citation and sharing and all kinds of other wonderful scholarly and academic and student-facing tools to make for more effective presentations and saving and such. I won't do that today. We don't have time, but I did want to show you the image viewer to give you a sense of how clear that is. So I'm going to go backwards now. As I mentioned a moment ago, my hope is to give you a sense of the richness of the content in the collection. So I'm going to move to another era, the Mexican-American War to Platte Agreement, 1846 to 1901. I hope by now you're beginning to see that there are many launching points for a student or a researcher to begin studying the early history of Hispanic Americans. This is what I'm illustrating now. So here we are, Mexican-American War to Platte Agreement. Let me scroll to something that is very important in the story of Hispanic Americans, immigration and citizenship. I could have taken you to any of these, international affairs, military matters. I open these to illustrate again how many of these searches and how carefully and smartly crafted they are. But because we have limited time, I'm going to open up just one of these, and it is this one. The term nativism enters a political debate. Even today, we hear this in the news almost every day, these matters and questions concerning nativism. Now here we have a very tight search limited to a very small time period. I could expand this, and I'll give you illustrations of that to make a much richer content set. But in this case, the editor has chosen a very comprehensive introductory set of content, as you can see, leaving it to the user, the student or the researcher, to expand or narrow as he or she may wish to do. All of the tools I've illustrated already continue to accompany this user through this journey. Here you can see, relating simply to this single search from this very narrow time period, a number of methods for interrogating the content even more effectively by looking at particular sources, for example. If I care about the Daily Pennsylvanian, which apparently was a very loud voice on this matter, or the Daily Union, or the Louisville Daily Democrat, I can read just those papers, or I can go back and change it. Going to show you some more, again, to help illustrate the richness of this content set. Here we open up Cuban independence to Mexican Revolution. Scroll down a bit. I could open up any of these to give you a sense, again, of how powerful this collection is. But what I'm going to do today, in the interest of time, is open up international affairs, obviously a very big matter by the time the 20th century came along. And here I will scroll to, by way of illustration, Mexican Revolution. Here we open up the searches covering the Mexican Revolution, and you can see again how it was constructed. As I mentioned before, this tool accompanies the user in all cases. It's always there, so he or she can see how the search was constructed. All the tools to allow creation of alerts and saving searches in my personal folder, they all accompany every search as well. But here you see, as we go into Mexican Revolution, a really powerful jumping off point from which students can begin to explore all the content in richer ways and by expanding the search here. So I'm going to scroll the content briefly, just to give you a sense of what it looks like. Of course, I could sort by oldest or newest, or choose a language or a particular paper, whatever I wish to do, or even a particular city or region. All of those filters and navigators exist within the product. What I'm going to do, though, is illustrate what happens when I expand this search. Here we have 23,805 results covering the Mexican Revolution from the period 1910 to 1920. Let's take a look at what happens here when I choose to expand this to 2020. You can see right now, 23,000 results. That's a huge amount of content, huge amount. But now watch. Wow, look at that, 133,293 results all the way through the year 2020. Notice that huge increase in the size of the content set. It's a really sweeping story that continues to today. I could have sorted or added all the way through 2023 and found current content from this week, still talking about the Mexican Revolution. But here I'm showing you just this one tranche of content to help you understand that while this is in essence a fire hose of content because we have so many items, so much coverage in this collection, the user can tame it as he wishes to do. So this may be where he wants to start and then go local and see, for example, what a particular city or place or point of view may have been, or this can be scaled back into a much smaller content set, or new terms can be added. You can see some of the options here for doing so. Let's continue our tour of the content. I'm going to scroll down to a slightly later time period. We're now going to look at the San Antonio flood to Sleepy Lagoon trial. Again, we could open up any one of these to show all kinds of important content from this time period. What I'd like to do now is illustrate the kind of coverage we have during the 20th century and later, for example, with sports and athletes. Here you see several possible searches you could take. I'm going to take the Cuban Stars. There you are. Cuban Stars, or Stars of Cuba, a wonderful team, as you can see. Lots and lots of content, including, and I wanted to show you this, content in Spanish. Content in Spanish. And if I wanted right now to limit only to content in Spanish, of course, I could do that by clicking on this button here. I could also go to different article types, different sources, different time periods. I can, in essence, maneuver this content any way I wish, or I could expand this to even today to find out what people are saying about the Cuban Stars in 2023. Just a few more I'd like to show you. Here I'm opening a later time period, 1943 to 1961, which we are calling Zoot Suit Riots time period to West Side Story. Court decisions I'm going to open. Very, very important legal matters, of course, are covered by this product because the law and civil rights and government and immigration questions are key to the Hispanic American story. That never changes. You scroll down here to Hernandez versus Texas. Supreme Court rules that minorities have equal protection under the 14th Amendment. I'll open this up. You'll see that from 1954 to 1955, immediately after this event happened, we have 136 results. A very, very comprehensive view. Now watch. So I want you again to see how the power of the content makes it possible to see things that would not be findable in any other collection or any other way. I'm expanding this now to 2023. We had 136 results in the first year or so. Now as I expand, 1,964. In essence, this is an absolutely comprehensive and definitive and unassailable coverage of this really, really important matter. All of it usable, sortable, filterable using the tools that I've shared before. A truly comprehensive view of this critical case from its origins, the very, very beginning, to today, viewable through many prisms, local, international, regional, and lots of others. So I have just a couple more examples, a few more to share. Go back to our tool here, the suggested searches panel. I'm going to open up Cuban Missile Crisis time period. You might think I'm going to open up only about the Cuban Missile Crisis, but that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to open notable people. I'm going to open the first one you see here, Cesar Chavez. Okay, here is an open one. This is a really brilliant collection on Cesar Chavez. Thousands and thousands of articles, sortable any way you may wish. Going back to the oldest. Coverage in the Sacramento Bee, the Modesto Bee, the Fresno Bee. Not surprising when you think of where Cesar Chavez was active at that time period. I really like this example because with this number of results, filterable with so many tools, it helps me imagine a teaching situation where, for example, Cesar Chavez is the main subject. Imagine this in a classroom, but students really didn't know a great deal about him. They might have looked him up on Wikipedia, but they didn't understand everything. They needed new perspectives because their faculty member or professor or teacher said, that's what you need to do. You need to look at the whole record, interrogate it, understand it. So here's Cesar Chavez as a teaching assignment or even for a term paper. Here is where the student gets started and actually finishes, because this content will include not just all the firsthand reporting and commentary, but also editorials, retrospectives, all matters concerning Cesar Chavez, all interrogatable and filterable using the tools that we've shown you already. So very powerful, great example. There are hundreds and hundreds just like it. This one would be perhaps very familiar to you. A couple more, just to bring us up to date. Covered the very, very long and expansive story of Hispanic Americans already, as you can see. I'm going to jump now to Refugee Act of 1980 to Latin Pop Explosion, covering 1980 to 1999, as you can see. This homepage of Hispanic Life in America promises to tell the experience and impact of Hispanic Americans as recorded by the news media. Here's an example of how that happens. I am in, again, this Refugee Act time period. I'm going to open Arts and Entertainment. Wow, look at this. Already, just opening this one theme, this one topic, huge amount of content covering arts and entertainment selected by our editors as jumping off points for users. Let's go to one of my favorites, Carlos Santana, inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That was in 1998. I opened this to show the power of the suggested search architecture, the editorial work and labor that allows for a user to find this fine, fine result of just 372. You can see that number right here. Why does this matter? The guidance being offered to the user is expandable or shrinkable, as I've shown, but very often it's tricky and difficult to construct these searches. Here, we get you going. You can do as you wish with it. For most users, this is probably going to be enough what we provide, but others will want to go deeper. I also wanted to show this example because the collection of content in Hispanic Life in America is, as I said, tremendously deep with coverage of absolutely everything. But here you can see the emergence of arts and entertainment, the theater, literature, essayists and thinkers, and so much more. You could see that just a moment ago as I was opening up these panels. Okay, got just two more I want to show you. About Elian Gonzalez to Supreme Court Justice Sotomayor. The story of Hispanic Americans isn't just about government or legal legislation or international affairs or even immigration and citizenship. All of these things very, very important. It's also about family and other things. Here's an example, business and entrepreneurship. Here in this era, we are covering that in great depth because it is of enormous importance. Here, let me open an example. Latino-owned businesses begin to outpace other American ethnic groups. This is a very carefully hand-constructed search, as you can see. one that would be difficult for most users to do on their own. Here, we're taking you to a fine selection of content covering this matter over a limited time period. Again, this could be expanded or narrowed depending on needs. Last one I want to open for everyone right now today is the final one in this final era, Arizona Senate Bill 1070 to today. I mentioned earlier how important immigration and citizenship is to the story of Hispanic Americans. And I know from watching how users have used this content before, it is one of the most interesting subject matters to them. What I want to show you right now is immigration and citizenship, which I'll open now. As you can see, I'm going to scroll a little bit to help you see how important immigration and citizenship is within the context and scope of the Hispanic American story. Kind of incredible when you see this, kind of incredible to me. We only have time to look at one. I'm going to open up DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. This is in the news all the time, even today. You can see that the editor who created this search limited it to just the year 2012. But let's have a look at what happens when I expand this to include all the way through today. We had 966 very targeted, very focused results. Here we go. Have a look at that. Blows my mind. 91,371 news items. They could be podcasts, they could be standard newspaper, they could be all kinds of different types of news, as you can see right here. But to me, this is extraordinary. It's incredible. The range of coverage, every possible perspective, every possible source, every possible region covered. When I see this on this very important matter that is in the news today, always in the news today, I say to myself, right here are 1,000 term papers, probably more, just waiting to be launched. All of the resources available to assess this one bill in particular and its impact from every imaginable angle. I see thousands of term papers, hundreds of classroom reports, dozens and thousands perhaps of projects for students and researchers, from presentations to class discussions. The possibilities are endless. And this is just one example. Just one example. So let me return then to this homepage where you see the hero image of Hispanic life in America and our suggested searches. I could scroll forever through this product, showing you more and more and more examples. I won't do that today because time, of course, is very limited. What I hope is that by seeing the content in this illustration, you have come to a good sense of how rich this collection is, of how many things a student can do with this collection, of the breadth and the depth of the content, and how, in fact, it is, in essence, a definitive resource that covers the entire spectrum of Hispanic American history, from the very beginning to today and through tomorrow. So I welcome you to explore further. We thank you very much for your business. We wish you great success with Hispanic Life in America and its companion, Black Life in America. And I say thank you. And I say thank you as well to Catherine. And back over to you as well.
Wow, Jim, thank you. Thank you so much for that rich information. Wow, wow. Well, now that we know more about the resource and how to pinpoint that information you're looking for, let's get it into the hands of your students, patrons, and your end users. Because we know, of course, if people don't know about the resource, they won't use it. So here are 5 ways to build awareness of your resource, Hispanic Life in America. Number 1, get it in the news. So public libraries especially submit a press release to your local community news outlets about the library's resource, or you can even reintroduce it to the community. Academic, school libraries, include it in a newsletter. There's a handout section, again, near the chat bubble. You'll see there you can download all of these. We have a sample of a press release or a newsletter write-up that you can use. Just enter information that's pertinent to your library and it's ready to go. Number 2, build up your web presence. If you do something like a featured resource of the month, or perhaps your building a DEI resource center. You can add it in there. We have the graphics and brief descriptions you can use here. You can see several examples from Michigan State University Library. They put it in their ethnic studies section. Contra Costa County Library, they have it in a newspaper section. So these are all examples that you can use or make your own. Say it on social media. We have ready-to-use social media posts and graphics to let you know about Hispanic Life in America, and so that you can pass that along to your patrons and faculty and students. And here you can see some examples of Coronado Public Library, George Washington University, and Nichols State University. They used our graphic and made their own description, so we welcome that creativity. And one other item here, these make a great addition, a little brief addition to your e-newsletters. I kind of call them newsletter nuggets. 4, video views. Video is the #1 way to engage. And we have 2 brief videos. They're less than 2 minutes each. One is an overview that briefly describes what's in Hispanic Life in America, and the second is a brief video with how to conduct searches and some of our more popular features in the resources. So these videos are available for you to download. You can add links to your website near the resource. You can put it on your own YouTube channel, include again in electronic newsletters or social media sites. And if you are also a customer of Niche Academy, you can find our videos there too. You just type in NewsBank or Hispanic Life in America in the marketplace, and you can easily add them to your own academy. And number 5, host your own hands-on training. You can use this program. We'll be sending a link, as I mentioned earlier, or you can build your own. Some of our customers tell us that they ask people to bring their own devices into the library, and so they can help them get logged in and show them how to navigate it so they can access it at home. So these are my top 5 engagement strategies. And again, they are all ready to use. They are in that handout section. I encourage you to download it right now. And I'd like to show you one more thing on newsbank.com. We have a marketing and resource center. So at www.newsbank.com, all of these resources, engagement strategies that I just shared with you are here, plus many more. We have bookmarks, posters you can print out, and various things there. So, even if you aren't the communications person at your library, I encourage you to send them this page or packet to see if there's information they can use. I know as a marketing person that I'm always open to new content, especially content that's already been generated. So don't hesitate to reach out to your colleagues and share this webpage and information. And again, we're happy to share today's presentation with you. You can download the presentation along with those 5 ready-to-use strategies. We have links right into the resource centers, so you don't have to hunt around yourself if you've got this presentation download. So we hope you found today's session valuable and that you have some actionable ways that you can reach out to your faculty, students, patrons, all of your users right away. As you exit, a quick survey will pop up. Please let us know what you thought about today's session and how we can improve it in the future. On behalf of the NewsBank team, thank you for sharing part of your day with us. Goodbye.